Picture this for a moment. A Chinese J-20 stealth fighter flies through the Tsushima Strait, a narrow stretch of airspace wedged between Japan and South Korea. This isn't just any corridor. This is one of the most heavily monitored skies on the planet. In this small area, you have U.S. military surveillance systems, Japanese early warning radars, South Korean air defense networks, all layered together, overlapping, redundant, designed so that nothing slips through unnoticed. Normally, if a foreign fighter jet, especially a non-stealth one, enters this zone, alarms would light up instantly. Radars would track it, command centers would activate, fighter jets would scramble to intercept, shadow, and record every movement. That's how this system is supposed to work. But this time, nothing happened. No interceptors, no public radar tracks, no emergency briefings, just silence. And that silence is the story. Because silence doesn't mean nothing happened. It means something happened that the system couldn't respond to, or couldn't publicly acknowledge. Think of it like the world's best security system failing to notice someone walk through the front door. Either the system is broken, or the intruder was designed specifically to avoid it. The J-20 isn't just another fighter jet. It's built to reduce radar visibility, distort sensor readings, and exploit gaps between different defense networks. And the Tsushima Strait, with its dense web of sensors, should have been the hardest test possible. Yet there was no visible reaction. That raises an uncomfortable question. If this is what happens in the most watched airspace on Earth, what's happening everywhere else? This moment isn't about one jet. It's about confidence and doubt. Because when systems built to see everything suddenly see nothing, the balance of power doesn't shift loudly. It shifts quietly. And that quiet is exactly where the tension begins. That silent flight wasn't an accident, and it definitely wasn't a one-off. To understand what's happening, you have to zoom out. Over the past few years, China's Navy and Air Force have been showing up again and again near Japan's waters and airspace. Warships sailing close. Aircraft flying long routes along sensitive corridors, not crossing red lines, but brushing right up against them. This is deliberate. For decades, the United States used a concept called freedom of navigation. U.S. ships and planes would operate near rivals to signal presence, collect intelligence, and test reactions, all without firing a shot. Now China is applying the same logic, just with newer tools and tighter coordination. But these missions aren't for show. Every flight and patrol is a live experiment. When a J-20 flies near Allied airspace, Chinese planners aren't just watching the jet, they're watching the response. How long does it take for radars to react? Which systems turn on first? Do Japan and South Korea coordinate immediately, or does information lag? Who takes command, and how fast? It's like tapping on a wall to find weak spots instead of smashing it outright. This is why calling these actions provocations misses the point. Provocations are emotional. These operations are clinical, data-driven, calm. China isn't reacting to the West anymore. It's testing it. And there's a big difference. Reactive powers wait, complain, and respond when pushed. Experimentally aggressive powers move first, gather data, adjust tactics, and return stronger the next time. That's the shift we're witnessing. The Tsushima flight wasn't a message sent through words. It was a message sent through measurement. And the reason China can keep running these experiments without exhausting itself lies far away from the coastline, on the factory floor. To understand why China can keep applying pressure, you have to stop looking at maps and start looking at factories. Modern military power doesn't begin on the battlefield. It begins in production lines, supply chains, and machine shops. China isn't just the world's factory in the old sense of cheap labor. It's something more dangerous, a country where civilian and military industry are deeply integrated. Take shipbuilding. China builds more commercial ships every year than the rest of the world combined. Container ships, tankers, bulk carriers, huge complex machines built fast and cheaply. That same industrial base can be redirected toward naval construction almost seamlessly. The tools, the steel, the workers, the logistics, they're already there. That's why China can launch destroyers, frigates, and support ships at a pace the U.S. Navy simply cannot match. A similar pattern exists in aviation, but in reverse. In China, military aviation led the breakthroughs: stealth shaping, advanced radars, new engines. Once those technologies matured, they spilled into civilian sectors: drones, helicopters, transport aircraft, even commercial airliners. Military innovation became a national technology ladder. Now compare that to the United States. America's systems are powerful, but old. Many were designed during the Cold War, upgraded again and again instead of rebuilt. That creates a hidden problem. Every upgrade adds complexity, cost, and delay. China doesn't carry that burden. This is called the latecomer advantage. China didn't have to protect legacy systems or outdated doctrines. It could skip steps, discard failed ideas, and design around modern technology from the start. Like building a city with fiber internet instead of trying to retrofit copper cables. That's why China can sustain high operational tempo. More ships entering service, more aircraft rolling out, faster repair and replacement cycles. Meanwhile, the U.S. struggles to keep pace, not because it lacks money or talent, but because its industrial base moves slowly and expensively. So when you see Chinese jets flying near Japan or ships appearing again and again near contested waters, it's not bravado, it's confidence, backed by factories that can keep running long after headlines fade. And that industrial confidence sets the stage for something even more important, a leap not just in platforms, but in systems. For a long time, China was seen as a military catch-up player, copying designs, learning slowly, staying one step behind. That picture is outdated. In just over a decade, China moved from fourth-generation fighters to fifth-generation stealth aircraft, and now openly discusses sixth-generation concepts. That kind of jump usually takes generations, not years. But the real story isn't the jet itself. It's the system around it. Modern warfare isn't about a single plane winning a dogfight. It's about how well aircraft, missiles, radars, satellites, early warning planes, and command centers talk to each other. Think of it like a smartphone. The hardware matters, but the operating system matters more. China built its military with this logic from the start. Instead of upgrading old platforms and forcing new tech to fit, it designed missiles, sensors, engines, and data links as one integrated network. A radar doesn't just see a target. It immediately feeds that data to aircraft, ships, and missile units. Decisions happen faster, with fewer human bottlenecks. That's why stealth matters so much. A stealth aircraft doesn't need to fight alone. It just needs to see first, pass information, and let the system act. And here's the critical bridge to the civilian world. The same technologies that power this military network, sensors, AI-assisted processing, lightweight materials, electric systems, are now showing up in civilian drones, helicopters, and commercial aircraft. Military investment becomes national resilience. This creates a feedback loop. Military breakthroughs improve civilian industry. Civilian scale lowers costs. Lower costs allow faster military deployment. That loop is extremely hard to break. So when China flies a J-20 near Allied airspace, it's not proving that one jet is invisible. It's testing whether an entire networked war system is mature enough to operate under pressure. And that raises a dangerous contrast, because on the other side of the Pacific, power still exists. But its foundation is starting to crack. Here's where the story takes an uncomfortable turn. The United States still has the world's strongest military, no question about that. Its pilots are experienced, its weapons are lethal, its global reach is unmatched. But power doesn't only come from what you own. It comes from how fast you can replace, repair, and expand. And that's where the weakness lies. Start with materials. Many advanced U.S. weapons rely on rare earth elements, critical for sensors, motors, and guidance systems. The problem? A large share of those materials are processed in China. That means even the most advanced systems can face bottlenecks before they ever reach the battlefield. Now look at shipbuilding. China can build dozens of large vessels in the time it takes the US to complete a handful. This isn't about worker skill. It's about scale, cost, and speed. US shipyards are few, expensive, and overstretched. Every delay ripples across the entire fleet. Then there's aviation. Boeing's ongoing struggles aren't just a corporate issue, they're a symbol. When a country's leading aerospace manufacturer can't reliably produce civilian aircraft, it raises serious questions about long-term industrial health. Meanwhile, defense contractors like Lockheed Martin face supply chain pressure and rising costs, making every new system slower and more expensive. This doesn't mean America is weak. It means America is overextended. Its military is powerful, but its industrial base is thin, like a professional athlete with incredible strength but limited stamina. Devastating in short bursts, vulnerable over long contests. That's the contrast with China. China is betting on endurance. The US is forced to manage scarcity. And when competition stretches from days to years, that difference becomes decisive. Which brings us to the moment where theories stop being abstract and start colliding with reality. So far, everything we've talked about could sound theoretical: systems, factories, doctrines. But some of these ideas have already been tested in real situations, just not in a direct China-US war. One example often discussed by military analysts is the India-Pakistan air confrontation. What stood out wasn't just which aircraft were involved, but how the fight was organized. Pakistan operated with a combat system China helped build, linking early warning aircraft, ground radars, air defense missiles, and fighter jets into a single network. Instead of each pilot fighting alone, information was shared across the system in real time. This is called networked warfare. In contrast, traditional air combat thinking focuses on individual platforms, how good one jet is versus another. Networked warfare flips that logic. Even a slightly inferior aircraft can gain a major advantage if it sees first, communicates faster, and acts as part of a coordinated whole. Training and doctrine matter just as much. Pilots aren't just flying planes. They're executing a system play, like players following a shared playbook rather than improvising alone. Now look at Africa, where China's influence shows up differently. Rwanda is often cited as an example not just of Chinese weapons sales, but doctrine transfer. Training, command structures, and operational discipline modeled on the PLA became part of how the force functions. This isn't about flashy equipment. It's about organization, planning, and execution. Even beyond the military, similar thinking appears in infrastructure and urban planning. Centralized coordination, long-term timelines, and system efficiency over short-term gain. The key takeaway is this: China doesn't need to fight a major war to learn. It can observe, assist, train, and analyze conflicts involving others. Each case becomes a low-risk laboratory. What works is kept. What fails is discarded. By the time China confronts a peer competitor directly, it wants fewer unknowns and fewer surprises. And that explains why pressure keeps increasing without crossing into open war. Because from China's perspective, pressure itself is the lesson. At this point, a natural question comes up. If China doesn't want war, why keep flying jets, sailing ships, and pushing boundaries? The answer is deterrence, but not the old kind. Traditional deterrence relies on statements and red lines. You declare what you'll do, hope the other side believes you, and pray no one miscalculates. China doesn't fully trust that model, especially after watching decades of US military interventions around the world. Instead, China practices deterrence through pressure. It constantly confronts, not to start a fight, but to remove uncertainty. Every patrol, every flight, every exercise is meant to show: This is what we can do. This is how often we can do it, and this is how calmly we can repeat it. There's a key belief behind this strategy. There is no such thing as a limited war with China. Any conflict would escalate quickly, spread across domains, and inflict massive costs on both sides. So China wants the US and its allies to understand that before a crisis happens, not after. This creates a paradox. China confronts in order to avoid war, because ambiguity is more dangerous than tension. The Cold War offers a useful parallel. The US and the Soviet Union didn't avoid conflict because they trusted each other. They avoided it because both sides clearly understood the consequences of escalation. That clarity came from repeated demonstrations of capability, not polite diplomacy. China wants the same recognition, not fear, recognition. And once that recognition sets in, the battlefield shifts again, away from missiles and jets and towards something slower, quieter, and far more decisive. The long game. This is where all the pieces come together. China isn't just playing a military game, it's engaged in a multi-layered contest, trade, technology, industry, and influence that stretches across decades. Every factory, every patrol, every satellite feeds into a single strategy. Make yourself indispensable, capable, and untouchable. The United States, meanwhile, is straining to respond. It pushes allies, pressures supply chains, and bets on quick results. But this approach has limits. Short-term pressure can't match long-term industrial endurance. China, on the other hand, plays a patient game. It accumulates experience quietly, flying jets near sensitive areas, building networks in allied nations, perfecting production and logistics behind the scenes. Each move is measured, each lesson recorded. The goal isn't a dramatic victory in headlines. It's to convince the other side that a confrontation is too costly. Think of it like a game of chess with millions of pieces. China isn't rushing for a checkmate. It's forcing the opponent to see the board clearly, understand the risks, and eventually hesitate before every move. The lesson for us as observers is simple. The real battlefield isn't just the Tsushima Strait. It's factories, supply chains, training grounds, and the quiet demonstration of capability. Watch where the systems are growing, not just where the headlines point. In the end, this isn't about winning a war. It's about making a war unwinnable. And that requires patience, persistence, and relentless preparation. The story isn't over. But now, when a J-20 flies past sensors and nobody reacts, we understand. It's not just a flight, it's a message, and it's time to pay attention.